Welcome to our podcast, proudly brought to you by VPA Australia, our trusted supplement provider since Unity Gym started. As sponsored athletes, we're excited to offer you a special 10% discount on top quality supplements that ship worldwide. Just use our discount code from the description. To avoid international shipping fees, contact VPA and tell them we sent you to get a flat shipping rate. Today's episode is also sponsored by the Flexibility Blueprint. Ever felt lost in the sea of social media fitness advice? The Flexibility Blueprint is your map to progress, designed to help you get laser focused on what matters most for your journey in flexibility and strength. And guess what? It's free. Grab it using the link in the description. If you're starting your flexibility journey, don't miss our 20-minute mobility routine. It's your first step to quick wins in flexibility. For those further along, use our Flexibility Masterclass, featuring advanced techniques like loaded stretching and end range strength for the pancake, front splits, middle splits, and more. Links for both are also in the description. And for the seasoned athletes, avoid the frustration of complex training puzzles with our UMS Tribe membership. It's a different online coaching experience with strength and flexibility combined. Don't forget, we're Amazon affiliates too. You can find all the equipment used in our videos and podcasts at the most competitive prices with our affiliate links in the description. Now let's dive into today's episode.
Hey, welcome to the podcast, the UMS Podcast. Something a bit different. My name is Phil White and I am not Rad or Yani, but today I'm really keen to talk to Rad about him getting huge at home as well. So we're going to be talking a bit about his journey of home training and hypertrophy. So excited to get stuck in and do something a bit different.
Yeah, it is a bit different, isn't it? We've had a lot of questions on our channel, and just because of the nature of the content that I'm doing these days, we all sort of thought that this might be an interesting topic, because in the last 12 months, I've really focused on building muscle, and I've put on about 7 or 8 kilograms of muscle. For those of you in the US, that's about 16 or 17 pounds, something like that. So I now weigh about 92 kilograms, which is about 202 pounds, and I'm 5'10". So I'm not going to win.
Like when you kind of start out as a teenager, when you left high school, 18, kind of you're as tall as you are now. Like what were you weighing at the end there?
Yep. Okay. So when I left high school, I was 75 kilos. So exactly the same height as I am now, 5'10". So I'm now 15, 16 kilos heavier. So that's about 35 pounds heavier than I was then. But when I started on this journey of really building muscle last year, I was 84 kilograms. So that's about 190 pounds, something like that, 185 pounds, something like that. And
what I'm weighing at the moment.
Yep. And I had a little bit more body fat on me than I do now. I have less body fat on me now as well. So it's been a really good process for me, and the main reason that I did it is because I turned 46 this year, and my years of I'm that old, and my years of being able to build muscle are limited now. I'm not saying you can't do it, but it's just getting harder and harder and harder, and more muscle is more strength potential. It doesn't obviously equal more strength, but more potential for strength. And I've just, when I did those slap tears, when I had a slap tear in both shoulders 14 months apart, it was a really rude awakening for me that I just wasn't, it couldn't have been a better indication that I wasn't strong enough for what I was doing. And one thing that I'd never done was to really focus on building some muscle mass in my upper body. And I thought, I've never done it. Let's do it. And I'm training at home. I've got this nice little home gym, so I thought I've got a good opportunity. I'm going to give it a try.
Yeah, and I'm interested. Like, you obviously were doing lots of home training due to the lockdowns, where you were leading the way with doing the at-home follow-along workouts, and I remember that was a bit of a body composition change then, and then you had the period back in the gym, and now I guess you've gone, with the gym's gone, and you've got your pretty good home gym set up. So I'm interested, like, what was the kind of body composition changes from beginning of COVID through to the end, and then and now?
Yeah, the biggest change during COVID, because I was doing those home workouts that you can still see on YouTube. We did 12 weeks of that, and there was a lot of HIIT training in that. There was a lot of cardio focused training. So I got really shredded, and I think I did even put on a couple of kilos of muscle as well. But the biggest change that I noticed, like there's pictures of me at the end of that COVID period where I was really lean. And I've had several DEXA scans. And to look at myself in those images, I reckon I would have been as lean as I've ever been as an adult. I would have been definitely under 10%. I've had DEXAs where I was 9.2%, and I was at least as lean as that. And then when I stopped doing all that HIIT training, and because my slap tears came after that, so when I had slap tears, I had to go through a regression / rehab phase. I definitely put on a little bit of body fat again, but we're talking, I would have gone from 9% up to 11% or something like that. And I would have lost muscle mass over that next year after the slap tears, because I just couldn't lift as heavy, and the focus wasn't to build muscle. The focus was rehabilitation and getting back to full strength. And now that I'm back up here, yeah, I probably even put on a little bit more fat when I moved away from the gym and came up here, just because for the first 6 to 12 months, I wasn't training nearly as consistently as I am now. It was a really hard transition for me to go from the gym, where, if you remember, Phil, we used to all train together at the gym. It was you, Yanni, Richard, me, and Will, and whoever, and Nilesh sometimes, and we were all training together, and that was a really motivating environment. And all of a sudden, I'm up here by myself, and I had nobody to train with, and it was very hard to get motivated. And so
between that period of my life training with you guys in the gym, and then also training at base gym with Sebastian Oreb, and in that sort of gym environment, it really bloody ruined gyms for me for a while there. Like, I just found it so hard to go back to training again, because I think it's similar to you, where you suddenly, like, out of that sort of social environment. I often think about the easiest way to make exercise happen is to make it social, and suddenly I was like, bloody hell, like, this is just nowhere near as enjoyable, and it doesn't feel like it's kind of filling those two buckets at once. And particularly now with a kid and a business I'm trying to build up, like, being so time poor, being able to do both those at once and getting so much out of that time is definitely miss it. So
yep, yeah, it is. There's so much to be said about that social interaction at a gym, and what I did, I'm a very goal oriented person, so I basically just came up with a really strong goal for myself, like a really strong reason as to why I should be training. That was something beyond, I'm just going to keep working towards the big rocks that I've had, with movement training for all these years. And so when I had that goal, to build 7 or 8 kilograms of muscle and remain lean, it became a really strong reason, to get in and to do.
I'm interested though, like, with I guess there's sort of I like the 5 why principles of, once you when you're trying to figure out the core reason to do something, you think, okay, why is this important? And then you ask, to that answer, like, why is that important? And then you keep going down until you kind of get to the core, which is almost always like happiness. But
yep.
Just kind of interested to go like one level deeper on why that is so important to you. Obviously, you reference like the slap tear experience, and if you want to achieve those movement goals, like, having more muscle will help that. But in terms of, like, there could be aesthetic reasons, there could be longevity reasons. Like, that's a real passion point of mine at the moment, is looking at strength and muscle mass or longevity. Like, I'm interested to hear for you, like, and I often go this with my clients, like, it's okay that aesthetics are a good reason to get yourself going, but sort of interested to know, like, what's the really big underlying why that makes 8 kilos more muscle sort of meaningful.
Good question, Phil. I love it. So I've done this exercise before, but not for a while. So I'm going to try and go through it the way that you meant to do it. So why do I want to build muscle? And then I think because I want to achieve my movement goals, and it gives me a greater potential for strength. So why is that important to you? That I've always wanted to be really, really good at movement. And when I was younger, it was Kung Fu, and now it's calisthenics and movement stuff. So I just really like pursuing that. Well, why is that important to you? So you have to go deeper now. And I think for me, I'm a goal-oriented person, and I feel that if I'm not achieving goals, and if I'm not making real progress towards something, then I don't feel inspired, and I'm at my best when I'm like working towards goals. So why is that important to you? And so that's when we start going really deeper. And for me, it comes down to social acceptance and the pursuit of mastery. So when you drill deep enough on people's why, it's usually tied to, the fact that we're herd animals, humans. And for me, it's that social recognition. So it's being able to be recognized as somebody that is good at what I do, so that I can inspire people. Because I've always enjoyed teaching people and inspiring and getting people to be able to do things that they couldn't do before. And so I feel I've learned over my years that you can do that better when you come from a place of where people can look at you and go, oh, I'm inspired to be able to do what you can do, rather than just saying, hey, you should try and do this, but you're not coming from a place of having experienced any of that yourself. So that's one of my deep root core reasons. And the other one is the pursuit of mastery. And I can't remember where I heard this, but I did read a book where they talked about the three reasons that, if you drill deep enough, the three reasons why people are motivated to do anything is either social recognition, pursuit of mastery, or I can't remember the third one because it didn't relate to me, but it was tied in with social recognition. So yeah, that's really my that's my why.
An identity piece there, like it's
Yep.
becomes kind of part. And I think of that pursuit of mastery, like I love that quote of like, people talk about the pursuit of happiness when really happiness is in the pursuit. Like it's when you're on that journey and you're feeling that tangible progress towards something meaningful for you, that's like, it's that journey, not the outcome, I guess.
That's certainly been my experience.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of really, really wealthy people talk about that like that. A lot of people look at these wealthy people and think, God, isn't that enough? But the destination of wealth doesn't seem to fulfill these people. I'm not there, so I can't talk about that. Yeah. But they talk about that it's the pursuit of getting there that is really fulfilling. So, and I've definitely found that. So for me, it's always like, I do want to achieve goals because I do want to be able to say, wow, look at that. But the second I achieve something, I'm immediately on to what's the next step? Yeah. How's the next place that I can go to with this?
Yeah, it's definitely a process, that 5 whys, that I like going through my clients, because I always try and think like, you want to make your motivation as like not non-fragile as possible, because I think so many people have, like, if they just go for like one superficial why, or don't really have even like a strong why to begin with, as soon as something gets in the way of that, it's so easy just to let it go. But when you kind of go through that process, it just builds up a much more robust and even like an anti-fragile, which is the term I love, which is something that actually gets stronger when you challenge it. But like, you have a much more anti-fragile or robust approach to that keeps you engaged, because I think that it's, how do we figure out to get our brains to do this for a lifetime? And the more things you can build around your why, I think is so important. And that's why, like, socially as well, I think like if you can add like a social expectation and social element to your, when you're turning up, then that also makes it kind of more robust. And so I guess like the more you can prop it up with really meaningful and important stuff, the better.
Yeah, that's a interesting point, Phil, especially about the social interaction. But really just the why of what's going to keep you motivated long term. I am really big on that these days. Knocking on the door of 46, I'm really looking at how can I stay motivated for the next 10 years and then the next 10 years after that. And so, yeah, for me, it's all tied into all of that. I wanted to build some muscle so that I could really excel in the calisthenics movements that I'm working at, and just keep that process going. Keep that process of feeling like I'm working, I'm moving forward, it's happening, and it's good. It's been good. It's been motivating.
Before we jump into the real, like, I guess, nitty gritty of how you made it happen, like, I think just one last bit on that motivation piece is like, I think it's okay to like realize that it can change over the years, and it's okay to be motivated by different stuff. Like, I think so many people I've worked with get so stuck in like, this is why I exercise and this is what I do and this is the only reason I do it. And I think trying to like break that apart and real, like, help other people figure out other ways of enjoying it and other ways of staying motivated is a nice way of like, sticking with it long term. But,
yeah.
We can talk about this sort of stuff all day, but really keen to hear like what's the I guess with muscle mass, it's one of those things where I think particularly women have that thing of like, I don't want to go to the gym and train because I don't want to get bulky, but I think that classic, like, it's actually way harder. It doesn't happen accidentally, and so I'm keen to hear what the like real intentional muscle building, like, is it your diet's been the main focus, or particular types of exercise and different rep ranges than you usually do, or what's been the movement needle the most?
The biggest thing would be diet, without a doubt. But I've been basically aiming for certain volume thresholds. So I've massively increased my volume that I've been doing on, especially my bent arm strength days. So I do 2 bent arm strength days a week, and those are the big days for me where I'm working on. I always still do my primary movements are always still targeting my calisthenics goals. So I'm still working towards a handstand push-up and a one-arm pull-up. And so that's pretty easy to do. You know, I'm doing a handstand push-up progression and a pull-up progression, working to build muscle in the muscles that are creating those movements, but I'm still doing the specificity of those calisthenics movements. Then, and I do 5 rounds of that, and I've been doing mostly working on the 8 rep range, but then I will do maybe every 2 or 3 mesocycles, which is a 4-week program for me. I will do a strength rep range purely to mix up, you know, for periodization and to just challenge my body a little bit differently. And because I've been training at home, usually when I've done a strength rep range, I've done dips instead of a handstand push-up progression, just because it's a much easier exercise to really, you know, use accurate progressive overload with and safer. And then I just do massive amounts of volume in my supplementary work. So once I've done those 5 sets of 8 reps, I'll move into things like, like I'll be targeting specific muscle groups. So last year I really worked on my chest, because my chest was always a lot smaller in relation to every other muscle in my body. It's just the way my body developed. And so I was doing massive amounts of chest flyers paired with bent over lateral raises, or any kind of a sort of a pulling movement like that. So I was doing like cable face pulls as well. I got myself some cable pulley systems so that I could actually do cable chest flies. And so I was just cycling between dumbbell pec flies on a bench and cable chest flies and using different angles. And I would do 3 or 4 sets of 2 exercises in my workouts, meaning I would do 3 or 4 sets of a chest fly with dumbbells, and then I would do 3 or 4 sets of a cable chest fly. So another 6 to 8 sets of 8 to 10 reps. So it's a lot of volume on one muscle group. And then I'd finish with just some rotator cuff work or something like that. And then I'd change from maybe doing 2 or 3 cycles like that, where I'm focusing on my chest, to focusing on my arms. And I'd really hammer my biceps and triceps just using the same principles. And then when it came to diet was probably my biggest change. Diet was, I really focused on getting at least 200 grams of protein per day, because I weigh about 200 pounds. So 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight per day is pretty accepted as the sort of minimum standard for building muscle. This has nothing to do with health, but to optimize muscle growth, this is pretty accepted research now. And so I don't weigh my food. I don't have food scales or anything like that, but I do, like, I have a protein supplement where it's 25 grams of protein per day, and I was having per serve, and I was having 4 of those per day. So that's 100 grams. And then I'd just have 2 meals, where in each meal I was just really trying to get 50 grams of protein, which is, I'm really just eating 150 to 200 grams of meat in my meals. And something that I've changed recently and that's working really well for me is, I was doing the classic, a breakfast, then a protein shake, then lunch, then a protein shake, then dinner. So I'm like eating protein every 3 hours. But Layne Norton, who's considered an authority on muscle building and on protein, Dr. Layne Norton really is, he was talking in a podcast that I listened to recently about that recent research has changed his position on eating protein every 3 hours to just getting your 200 grams of protein or your 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight per day, just getting that within a 24-hour period in 3 meals, for example. And I won't go into why that is. You can go and listen to the podcast if you search for it. But that made me think, okay, I'm going to try and just eat 3 meals a day, because I just constantly felt bloated having, a meal every 3 hours or a protein shake every 3 hours. So now what I do, and what's working really well for me, is I have a shake in the morning with 100 grams of protein. So I have all my 4 servings of protein powder in that one smoothie. And so it's a smoothie. So I have fiber in it. I have psyllium husk and chia seeds. I have L-glutamine. I have some fruit in it as well. So I'll either have blueberries or a whole banana, again, mostly for fiber. I just want to increase the fiber content in that smoothie. and then I just have to have lunch and dinner where I'm just having meat and vegetables. And so that's been a big shift for me, and that is without a doubt the biggest change that I made, because the change to my training was, there was a change to it, but it wasn't huge. But that change to eating, that was big.
Yeah. I think so often people will think like, you just got to exercise harder, but yeah, recognizing that it is the recovery, and I think recovery being sleep, stress management, and nutrition being kind of the big three. Like it's then when you do get the actual adaptation. So like with the kind of framework I work with my patients, it's like, you have exercise as a thing to think about, but then the results actually come from pairing exercise with really good recovery, because that same stress that you're doing there, if you didn't recover adequately, would just lead to injury, fatigue, burnout,
That
and all negative stuff. So
That's actually a good point, because there is something else that probably a lot of people won't want to hear that I've done, and that is that I've eliminated alcohol. I've abstained from alcohol for the last almost year and a half now, where I've probably had alcohol on 10 occasions, and 8 out of those 10, I only had one drink. And then there were 2 occasions in the last 14 months where I've had more than one drink. And that has been a huge part of it, because again, listened to some more research, or I listened to Andrew Huberman talking about the effects of alcohol on reducing testosterone and increasing estrogen in men. And apparently it's catastrophic in men my age, like the reduction in testosterone levels. So that is actually, I forgot about this. That's another big thing that I've done. I listened to several podcasts, again, from, authorities in the space, people like Andrew Huberman, and about how you can naturally increase testosterone. And I started taking several supplements that I wasn't taking, which are all there on my shelf. I'll go there. And basically, I started taking vitamin D3, Tonkat Ali, zinc, and recently magnesium. And that's on top of the supplements that I was already taking. And those are all supplements that Andrew Huberman, in a podcast talking about how to naturally boost testosterone, was talking about, the reasons why they can help. And I get my bloods tested. So for anybody that's listening, I do get my bloods tested every 3 to 6 months. So I am monitoring the levels of these things, and I'm making sure that I'm not out of whack. In summer, I haven't been taking vitamin D3 that much because I've been getting sunshine, but in winter I've been taking it. So yeah, I should say that as well. I was working to naturally boost my testosterone, and I got my levels tested about 3 months ago. And unfortunately, they didn't test my free testosterone, which I was upset about. I do want to get that tested. But my testosterone level, and I can't remember the way that they describe the reading, but it's the healthy range for a man my age, at least by Australian standards, which apparently is far less than US standards. But it's 8 to 29. I think it's 8 nmol to 29 nmol, and I was 31. And my doctor tried to tell me your testosterone is too high. And I was really, really happy that it was so high. So I was like, I'm not reducing my testosterone. I'm going to try and get it higher than that. So yeah, so that was really cool.
yeah, I think like the alcohol thing is just, it does seem like a bit of a shift just in, I don't know if it's just my social circles living in Manly, which is generally a fairly health conscious place. But I mean, I know for myself, it's just not appealing at the moment anymore to drink. And probably that's partly having a kid and sleep being not ideal. But it's just so good having the options for non-alcoholic beers, and generally like that sort of social side is just, if I just have, if I'm just going to catch up with mates, like just having like one non-alcoholic beer or two, like it's just really a nice experience instead of going for the alcoholic stuff, which then, even though it does help you get to sleep, like your sleep quality is just nowhere near as good. So yeah, when thinking about recovery and the like sleep being a big factor in also testosterone and muscle building, like it's so nice to not have that being a negative impact as well. So
Yeah, I agree. For me, I'm loving not drinking alcohol. I really am. Like I'm well beyond the point of feeling like, oh, I'd love to have a drink. And I just love the way that my life is thriving, and the energy levels that I have and the focus that I have when I wake up every morning, just feeling really good. So I'm not trying to be a zealot.
Yeah, I guess just on that, like ranking, I guess the big three of being exercise, nutrition, and then the supplementation that you've got. Like, where do you rank kind of level of importance and of those three for people who are just starting out?
Sorry, I was muted. That's a hard one to answer. I mean, look, I would definitely say the exercise is number one, because if you're not doing the exercise, you're not even creating the stimulus for muscle growth. But a very, very close second is the protein, because without getting the protein, like the exercise is just the stimulus. The recovery is the catalyst for muscle growth. And you absolutely need the protein, because your body goes, okay, yes, let's build some muscle. You've told us to do it. Where's the protein? And if you don't have it, you're just not going to build the muscle. I didn't mention this, but I was already getting 8 hours sleep every night with a good circadian rhythm. Like I go to bed and rise at the same time without the use of an alarm. So that is really, really important. And then I would say all of the supplements. But, you know, maximizing testosterone, if you want to build muscle, if you're a guy, then yeah, look into what you can naturally do to boost your testosterone. And I'd never done that before. And it's had a positive impact for me. So yeah.
And not really my area, but like I do believe that, you know, testosterone still is important for women, and estrogen there's still a function of like an important function of it in men as well. So just I think there's that sort of like some people who don't know too much like demonize it and like must get estrogen to very low levels, but it is an important hormone for
absolutely. Well, look, we've run out of time, guys. I hope you got something out of that. I kind of feel like I'm pulling my own chain doing a podcast like this, but I know that
that's the results that so many people want, and seeing your journey over the years of, you know, being a 75 kilo guy when you and then coming to 90, like that's something.
It's a big change, and
while also being mobile, and also, you know.
Well, yeah, that's it. I did all of that without going backwards with flexibility. I haven't made much flexibility. Actually, that's not true, because after my slap tears, my shoulder range of motion was dramatically reduced, and I have made increases in my shoulder flexibility over the same period of time. I'm probably back at about, with shoulder flexion and extension, about 90% of before slap tear. Internal and external rotation is probably still a bit less, but I have made improvements there. And then in my hip mobility, I've probably maintained the flexibility that I had. So yeah, it's been really good.
And you've been running through this time, which we
I've been running. That's a talk for another episode. But I've started running again. I'm running probably on average 2 to 3 times a week. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I just think it's a nice like summary of basically, like, you know, you're still staying fit, you're still staying mobile, and you're getting stronger. So it's, you know, that's. I don't think you're yanking your own chain. I think this is something really valuable that a lot of people get something out of.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Phil. Thanks for your time today, and thanks everybody for listening. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments section. If you haven't already, like this podcast, subscribe to our channel, and if you've got any ideas for podcast episodes that you'd like us to talk about, please put them in the comments, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.